Hey, what's good? It's Marshall Mathers the Fourth here. I just thought I would make a video today about why a Slim Shady LP2 album by Eminem would never work, and just all around would not work. Starting off with the most reason, the fact that he's way too old to release a sequel to the original Slim Shady LP from 1999. And you know what? He's been old for a while. I mean, let's just be honest with ourselves. He's been 40 years old since October 17 of 2012. And, you know, I mean, it would just seem kind of silly for him to make a sequel to that album when he's so much older than when he released it. Like, when he released the Slim Shady LP in February of 1999, he was 26 years old. He was young and in his 20s. And now he's 47 years old. And I would say that at the very latest, if he had released a Slim Shady LP2 album, he should have released it at the very most on actually the 10th anniversary of the Slim Shady LP. So knowing that the Slim Shady LP came out in 1999, it would have made the most sense if he wanted to release a sequel to that album, of course, being a Slim Shady LP2 album, as that would be the title. At the most, he should have released an album like that being 10 years later. So then at the age of 36, like in probably this, like on the same month and same day that he released the original Slim Shady LP, but 10 years later in 2009, when he would have been 36. And whenever any rapper releases a sequel to any of their albums, I would say that the most that they should wait is 10 years. Any more than that is waiting too long. Like, for example, when it comes to Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP2 album, it would have made the most sense to have released that album on May 23 of 2010, knowing that that would have been actually the 10th year anniversary of the original Marshall Mathers LP, released on May 23 in the year 2000, when Eminem himself was only 27 years old. But instead, he released the Marshall Mathers LP2 in November of 2013, when he was 41 years old. And that is way too long of a wait to release a sequel to even that album. It's just too long. And not only was that 13 years after the original Marshall Mathers LP album, but almost 14. I mean, think of how close November is to a new year. It's literally about like one fucking month away from a new year. Because after November, there's December, which is, of course, and obviously always the last month of every year before it becomes a new year. And I don't know, I just think it's kind of outrageous and unbelievable that even when it comes to the Marshall Mathers LP2, that Eminem himself just waited way too long. Way too fucking long to release a sequel to even that album. And you know what, I can only think that he originally probably never even planned to even release a sequel to that album. And you know why I say that is because think about what album came out in 2009 instead of a Slim Shady LP2 album? Relapse, which honestly is the best and most closest thing that diehard Eminem fans are ever going to get to a Slim Shady LP2 type of album. I mean, honestly, I'm just telling you all the honest truth. And I will also say this. I want a Slim Shady LP2 album just as much as the next guy or the next girl does. I mean, the Slim Shady LP is, if anything, my all-time favorite Eminem album, in my own personal opinion. And I also think it's the best and greatest album he's ever released in his entire rap career as a rapper, because there is not one song on that album that has, well, at least in my opinion, a bad beat or bad lyrics. There is not one song on that album that has a shit beat or shitty lyrics. Not a single one. Again, not in my opinion. And, you know, one thing I really do, though, wish Eminem at least would have done when it comes to the original Slim Shady LP, he should have either way released a deluxe edition of that album. And even on the regular edition, it should have been a bit longer. Like on the regular edition of the Slim Shady LP, he should have included songs like Get You Mad, which is on the special edition of the Slim Shady LP, and on the re-release of the expanded edition of the Slim Shady LP, which came out 20 fucking years later after the original Slim Shady LP. And then a song that you can hear on YouTube, which is a unfinished, uncompleted song that I know Eminem had originally planned to release on the Slim Shady LP. When listening to it, you can definitely tell it was Slim Shady LP era Eminem on this track. His flow, his voice, and everything. And the song is titled Demon Inside. And I think it was supposed to feature another rapper, I'm not sure. But you can hear the unreleased, unfinished version of that song. And the song is just fire, of course. It's dope as fuck. And it's just such a hot track all around. And again, he originally planned to release that on the Slim Shady LP, but he didn't because he didn't even finish it. And so now it's just on YouTube as a unreleased, unfinished, uncompleted track by Eminem that he never fully officially released because he never fully finished it or completed it all the way. And another song that is also a unreleased Eminem song, but it's funny because this song is actually completely finished, like just full on done. And the song is titled Till Hell Freezes Over. And that song you can also hear and listen to on YouTube. And I honestly don't know why a song like Till Hell Freezes Over, which is obviously finished and completed all the way, if you look it up on YouTube, you will see just what I mean. And yet it was never fully released. Not on any of Eminem's albums. And that was another song that was originally intended to be released on the Slim Shady LP. So, on the regular edition of the Slim Shady LP, it should have been longer by 3 more tracks, being Get You Mad, a finished, completed version of Demon Inside, and Till Hell Freezes Over. And then he should have released most definitely a deluxe edition for the Slim Shady LP, including songs on the deluxe edition only being Low Down and Shifty, which is a song that is off of the Slim Shady LP. I mean, not Slim Shady LP, Slim Shady EP. Sorry, I made a mistake, but just bear with me. And then there's a song also on the Slim Shady EP called Murder Murder featuring Tupac. And it's obviously not featuring Tupac literally, but it's just simply a remix of one of Tupac's old songs with Eminem's verses on it. But it is called Murder Murder featuring Tupac. And then there's also a song called No One's Iller Than Me featuring D12, which is also a song off the Slim Shady EP, not LP. For those of you who don't understand or are confused, in 1997 he released the Slim Shady EP, which is like an extended play of CD that pretty much helped him become famous, because Dr. Dre found the Slim Shady EP on the floor in Jimmy Iovine's garage, and he put it in and played it, and immediately Dr. Dre wanted to find this guy and sign him to his record company. And you know, when it comes to it, I really don't understand or know why Eminem never released a deluxe edition of the Slim Shady LP with songs including Low Down and Shifty, Murder Murder featuring Tupac, and No One's Iller Than Me, which are all dope ass fucking fire tracks off of the Slim Shady EP, when other songs off the Slim Shady EP made it onto the LP. Like, for example, the song If I Had, which was originally on the Slim Shady EP, was re-released on the Slim Shady LP. Also another song, but it had a different name, and it was on the Slim Shady EP. Originally it was named Just the Two of Us, and then it was renamed 97 Bonnie and Clyde. And when it was re-released on the Slim Shady LP, and then also another song that was originally on the Slim Shady EP that also made it onto the Slim Shady LP was I Just Don't Give a Fuck. And that was re-released on the Slim Shady LP. But then you have three whole fucking songs, which are all, again, dope ass fire fucking tracks made by Eminem on the Slim Shady EP that never made it on any fucking version of the Slim Shady LP. Not the regular version and not a deluxe edition, which really upsets and disappoints me as an Eminem stan that I am. Being the songs Low Down and Shifty, Murder Murder featuring Tupac, and No One's Iller Than Me featuring his old rap group D12, which would have just been absolutely perfect on a deluxe edition of the Slim Shady LP. I mean, those songs would have just been fucking fantastic on a deluxe edition. But I would say it would have even been awesome if he would have even added one more extra song on the deluxe edition of the Slim Shady LP, and that being a song featuring all the members of Eminem's other rap group that he used to be a part of, the Outsiders. And that would have just been awesome. And that would have been very considerate and thoughtful of Eminem if he also had included a song featuring all the members of the Outsiders rap group, including himself, on a track together on the deluxe edition of the Slim Shady LP. And that is only, again, if he had made a deluxe edition of that album, as he definitely should have. And even on the regular edition of the album should have been longer, including the songs Get You Mad, a full-on completed finished version of Demon Inside, and Till Hell Freezes Over. And that would have just been fucking epic. Like, literally just incredible. But also, at the very latest, Eminem should have released the album, both year-wise, month, and day-wise, should have been January 1 of 1999. And that's not actually the year I wish he would have released that album. I wish he would have released it on January 1 of 1997 when he was 24. But at the very, very latest, year-wise, month-wise, and day-wise, either way, he still should have released that album on January 1 of 1999. Either at the very beginning of 1999 or 1997, the year I would have so much rather preferred him to have released it. And also the age that I would have also much rather preferred him to release the original Slim Shady LP at the age of 24, instead of how he actually was when he released it, which was 26. But I'm kind of getting off track here in this video a bit, but there are other reasons why a Slim Shady LP2 album wouldn't work that I'm about to explain right now. The second thing that just wouldn't work with a Slim Shady LP2 album is, if you think about the Slim Shady LP album, it was Eminem's first mainstream hip-hop rap debut album that really put him in the spotlight. But I would even more so say his second mainstream hip-hop rap album, the Marshall Mathers LP, released on May 23 of 2000. I would say that album probably even more so put him on the map, on the radar, in the spotlight, and so on and so forth. But obviously, still the Slim Shady LP in a sort of way did somewhat put him on the radar, on the map, in the spotlight. And that album was an album that he used to introduce himself as a rapper in the rap game to not only the entertainment industry and the media, but to the whole world. And his, of course, Slim Shady alter ego character persona and image that he rapped from the perspective of. And if he made a Slim Shady LP2 album, that would seem kind of funny, because he wouldn't be introducing himself to the world. If he had released a Slim Shady LP2 album, we would have already known him very well and recognized him as the GOAT, one of the best and greatest rappers of all time, dead or alive, and that he's just incredibly famous, really overrated, not in a bad way, but in a good way, and super rich. And we would have already known, like, all the fucking things that he'd been through growing up, all the suffering and pain and whatnot that he had to go through and experience and live through, and on, and it wouldn't, like, him rapping about that again wouldn't make sense on a Slim Shady LP2 album. And here's another reason why a Slim Shady LP2 album would not ever work. Because what's, like, the most things that Eminem raps about on that album? On the Slim Shady LP album, he raps about being suicidal. He raps about being depressed and miserable and brokenhearted, torn apart emotionally and mentally. He raps about being a drug addict and alcoholic. And on the Slim Shady LP, he rapped about how he was on weed, acid, shrooms, and a whole bunch of other drugs, Vicodin, Valium, and just so on and so forth. And I mean, how in the world would that work on a Slim Shady LP2 album when Eminem probably, if anything, would have been clean and not on drugs anymore, or an alcoholic anymore for that matter, if he had released a Slim Shady LP2 album and a sequel to the original Slim Shady LP? How would that work? I mean, I guess he could have done that, but worded it in a different way and maybe have different track names, of course, on a Slim Shady LP2 type of album. I guess he could have done that. But then again, it still would have seemed funny, because it would not have been true. It would have been false. And also, I mean, would he have still been suicidal? Like, what would he have rapped about instead of being rock bottom, broke, poor, and trying to introduce himself to the mainstream entertainment industry and the media and the world and all the suffering he went through, as if he didn't already rap about that enough on the Slim Shady LP album? And how would, like, what would he rap about besides doing weed, shrooms, Vicodin, Valium, and being an alcoholic and other shit like that? What would he rap about instead, or as an alternative to that sort of stuff on a Slim Shady LP2 album? I mean, what? I'm asking you, the audience, that question, who want him so badly to release a Slim Shady LP2 album. And again, I would fucking love him to release a Slim Shady LP2 album. But it's very obvious and clear he's never going to release a Slim Shady LP2 album. He's too old. He really is. At the end of the day, he's too old. And like I said, at the most, the longest he should have waited to release a Slim Shady LP2 album, if he himself wanted to or wants to, should have only been at the very most 10 years later. I mean, honestly. Like, no joke, no lie, 10 years later at the fucking max. So he released the first one at age 26 in 1999. He should have released a sequel then in 2009 at age 36. And showed his maturity level since the first one 10 years later. But he didn't, because he himself probably doesn't have that desire or longing to make a Slim Shady LP2 album. And he still tried to make fans who are fans of Slim Shady LP, Eminem, he tried to make them happy with releasing a Relapse album. Because if you think about it, like I said earlier in this video, the Relapse album, if you think about it, at the end of the day, is really kind of a sequel to the Slim Shady LP. But it's a more mature version of that album. And it's a more dark, twisted, disturbing version of that album instead of a comical version like the Slim Shady LP was. And Relapse is a fucking dope-ass, classic, underrated, underappreciated album. And, I mean, again, that's the closest thing we as diehard Eminem fans or stans will ever get to having a Slim Shady LP2 album. And I'm happy with that. Honestly, I'm happy with that. That's good enough for me. And the same could be said for the Marshall Mathers LP2. It's pretty obvious that originally he probably never intended or planned to release a sequel to the Marshall Mathers LP album. Because what album did he release in 2010 at the age of 37 instead of releasing a sequel to the Marshall Mathers LP, which would have made the most sense, releasing it on actually the 10th anniversary, so that would have been on May 23 of 2010 when he would have been 37, exactly 10 years after the original Marshall Mathers LP, and he could have had like a 10th anniversary party of the original Marshall Mathers LP album. He released Recovery instead, because it's pretty obvious he probably, like I said, originally probably never planned to or intended to release a Marshall Mathers LP2 album, and why it took 13 years after the original one to release a sequel to that album. And one of the main reasons Eminem fans also want a Slim Shady LP2 album now more than ever is because he released a sequel to the Marshall Mathers LP, so it would only be fair, but that doesn't mean that he will. But anyway, let me know what you guys think of this video in the comment section below. I'm out.